This is Bryan Jack Holder. I'm the Liberty Caucus candidate for Iowa's 4th Congressional District. Tonight, it is May 4th, 2022, and the Republican primary is just a few weeks away. I want to formally and publicly announce my support for my friend John Ray Springhauer for Pottawatomie County Board of Supervisors. I've gotten to know John over the last 6 months. He's very open and transparent, accountable, and I think he would do a wonderful job representing all of the people of Pottawatomie County. So I ask you to support John in the June 7th Republican primary for Pottawatomie County Board of Supervisors. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you got no. Oh, yeah, you got that camera angle.
How are you?
Checking 1, 2. In the back of the room here, anybody want to put up their hand? Can we hear in the back room? Yes. Hello? So, to begin with tonight, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jeannie Wortman. I'm the Executive Director for the Missouri Valley Chamber of Commerce. We were requested to help host this event tonight. So we worked with the Rand Center, and they were kind enough to allow this forum to be held here. As far as some introductions tonight, we have our 2 candidates that are running for the House 15 position as our representatives in this area. So first of all, we have Rebecca Wilkerson. And we have our current House Representative, Matt Windschitl. Other people that are helping tonight, we have our timekeepers. We have Judy Holcomb and Clint Sargent, who are board members for the Missouri Valley Chamber of Commerce. Our moderator tonight is Renee Anderson. She has been very kind to help us do these forums several times. So we are glad to have her tonight. So in case no one knows Renee Anderson, here she is. And so tonight, the first thing that we're going to do is, if I could have everyone stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the Constitution which founded our republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And 200 other individuals that we have here tonight are the Republican chairs for both Pottawatomie County and for Harrison County. So for Harrison County, we have Wayne Barr, who's right here. And we also have Starlin Perdue with the Pottawatomie County. And why we're doing this here in Missouri Valley is because of the rezoning of District 15 that was rezoned in 2020. So now part of Pottawatomie County is also with Harrison County. So this was just a way for us to bring it all together. So that's what I have for you tonight. Renee is going to read the rules for this evening, and she will be asking each of the questions of the candidates tonight.
Okay, here are the rules that we're going to adhere to at the forum tonight. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer the question asked by the moderator. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for closing remarks. The timekeeper will show a yellow card when there are 30 seconds left for the candidate to finish their answer, a blue card when there are 10 seconds left to finish, and a red card means a candidate needs to stop speaking. Their time has expired and the bell will be rung. If a candidate continues speaking after their allotted time has expired, they will be given a one-time warning. If there is a second occurrence, they will be removed from the forum panel. Candidates will adhere to a professional decorum. No personal attacks against another candidate will be allowed. The audience will also adhere to a professional decorum. Anyone making a disturbance will receive a one-time warning and will be removed from the Bryan Center if a second time occurs. Please hold any applause until the end of the questioning. Okay, well, before we get started tonight, just so you guys know, I talked to Jeannie ahead of time and I said, are you guys flipping or how do we know who's starting? And she said, well, let's do ladies first. So the first question will go over to Rebecca, but right now what we're going to do is you guys have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves. So Rebecca, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be great.
My name is Rebecca Wilkerson. I live between Mundayman and Pisgah. I'm married to Gary Wilkerson, my husband here. We've been married for almost 32 years. We raised our children on the farm. I homeschooled my children until one of them, Hannah, my youngest, went to public school for 1 year. I stand for pro-life, transparency in the legislature. We need to change the government. The status quo is not going to go anymore. I stand for medical freedom. I was recently on the Medical Freedom Task Force. I went down to Des Moines to write the Medical Freedom and Privacy, help write the Medical Freedom and Privacy Bill, which still has not come to the House. I stand for the Second Amendment, but if we don't have Second Amendment, we have Second Amendment rights, but our government starts taking away our other rights. Those are very important also. And lately, some of you know me because I have been speaking about the things that in government that have been going wrong lately. How soon we forget COVID and all the restrictions put on us from COVID back in 2020. And that's kind of what got me started into the path that I went on and the reason I am running for state legislature. Transparency is key, and we need to know what our legislators, where they stand, not just the ones in our district, but we need to know where they all stand so that we can talk to them and encourage them, because every legislator in the state of Iowa affects all of us. So we need to be able to know where they stand and how they vote, instead of just making votes only come to.
Matt, would you like to give your opening remarks?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I appreciate everyone taking time out from their beautiful Wednesday evening to come down and listen to Rebecca and I answer some questions for you. I'm Matt Windschitl. I'm the state representative for currently House District 17, but I am running for House District 15, which is a newly redistricted after the October redistricting. I've been serving in office for 16 years. I'm a dedicated conservative. I'm a proven leader on conservative issues. What I stood for 16 years ago is still what I stand for here today. I am pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. You're not going to find somebody that's fought harder to protect your freedoms, your individual liberties, than what I have in the State House. I live here in Missouri Valley with my beautiful wife, Elise, and our 2 daughters. And we have been going through the politics that has changed our country over the last decade plus, and we recognize that there's still work to be done. And that's why we are continuing to seek to serve the folks of Harrison County, and now also Potawatomi County. At the end of the day, you're not going to find somebody that's fought harder for your freedoms than what I have. It's a common thing down in Des Moines. If you want to talk freedom, go talk to Matt. If you want to talk about Second Amendment protections, go talk to Matt. If you want to talk about saving the unborn, go talk to Matt. When I started this 16 years ago, I was a no-name nobody from Western Iowa. I have since worked my way up through leadership, and I now serve as a House Majority Leader, which brings a lot of influence for Western Iowa and gives me the ability to represent you even better and with better results. So I appreciate you being here. I look forward to your questions, and hopefully I look forward to earning your vote on June 7th. Thank you.
All right, Rebecca, what are the highest priorities for District 15?
The highest priorities for District 15 is the reason that I am in am running for office in the first place. The highest priorities for District 15 are your freedom, your medical freedom and privacy. If you don't have control over what doctors can say about your medical freedom, what your employer can say, you have to choose between employment and getting a shot that might kill you. That, to me, is third. We got the Second Amendment, pro-life, and then for me, right now, the highest priority is your medical freedom. Because there are people that at 57, if they are told they have to get a shot or lose their job, they cannot go get another job. At that age, it's very hard to get a job that's making what you make now. So,
Matt, what are the highest priorities for District 15?
Well, Rebecca's spot on. It is about freedom, all right? It's about freedom to make your own decisions, free from government intrusion and government overreach. But a part of that, it's not just the medical freedom. Her and I agree 100% on the fact that you should not have to disclose your vaccination status to maintain employment. But it's also freedom from taxation. You have to have low taxes, especially with this economy that we have right now, at high inflation. Government needs to have less of your money, and you need to have more of it in your pocket. We also have to make sure we maintain our priorities of the everyday way of life that we live here in rural Iowa, and making sure we've got good communities, strong communities that are thriving, and that people can live, grow, and raise their family without the fear of government coming in and telling you what you have to do.
Okay, Matt, then this one goes to you. Why did you choose to run to represent District 15?
The same reason I chose to run back in 2006. When Evie and I were proposed with the opportunity to run for office when I was 22 years old, fresh back from Iraq, we remember the same conversation we had sitting on the couch about in our two-bedroom apartment above the family gun shop. The determining factor for us as we watched our oldest daughter, Anna, who was just a baby at the time, play on the floor was, we want to make the world a better place for our kids and your kids. That is still the driving factor behind why I chose to run for House District 15 again, is because we have made a lot of improvements, we've made a lot of step forward, but there's still much work to be done, and I've proven to you and to others that I have the capability of being able to make the world a better place that we all want for our families.
Rebecca, why did you choose to run for House District 15?
I chose to run for House District 15 because the status quo is not a go anymore. We wrote a bill, the Medical Privacy and Freedom Bill, and as it was written, it was never brought to the floor of the House. It said medical free treatment status. It did not give a carve out for the federal government. We do not want to put into code that the federal government can tell you, the citizens of Iowa, that they have to have a shot. And it also had the carve out for Medicare and Medicaid recipients, so that meant that hospitals would have had to require the vaccine of their employees. That never got brought in front of the House. Why? That should have sailed. Our freedoms are at stake here. And that should have been brought to the representatives to let them decide and let them vote, so that if they didn't vote or how they voted, we would know how they voted and we could talk to them about preserving our freedoms.
Rebecca, this one goes back to you then. What is one key accomplishment of your work experience, either in office or in the private sector, that you are the most proud of?
Well, that's a pretty easy one. I have two daughters. I chose to stay home and never went to college because I knew that I was going to stay home with my children because they were top priority to me. So I stayed home and homeschooled my children. My oldest daughter is a nurse. She never went to public school at all. She got her GED and went on to South Dakota State. She's a nurse, and she is now she has 3 children. She works a full-time job, 3 children, and she is getting her nurse practitioner. And then my youngest daughter got her degree in 3.5 years. At the age of 21, she had her degree in agronomy. So that is my biggest accomplishment, is my children, because they're the most important thing to me.
Matt, what is the one key accomplishment of your work experience, either in office or in the private sector, that you are the most proud of?
Freedom. It's as simple as that. It's your freedoms. When I got down to Moines 16 years ago, everybody knew that that was my mantra, was freedom. and you want to talk about whether we were having freedom for the unborn to actually have a voice and not be aborted in the womb, you want to talk about restoring your Second Amendment freedoms. We went from being a May issue state to now having constitutional carry. It took me 15 years to get it done, but we finally got it done. You have freedom to stand your ground. There are so many different things that I could list off, but the basic takeaway from all of it is freedom. I fought for your freedom, and I want to continue to do so.
Okay. The next one, Matt, we start with you. Tell us about 3 key messages of your campaign.
3 key messages of my campaign. Freedom, freedom, freedom. All right? Look, I said it in my opening. You're not going to find someone that has fought harder down in Des Moines to restore your freedoms. You're not going to find someone that's fought harder to protect the unborn. You're not going to find somebody that's fought harder to lower your taxes or to protect your Second Amendment rights and to restore those Second Amendment virtues that should never have been taken away. So it's freedom, freedom, and freedom. I know that that's going to be a common theme, but that's who I am. It's a running joke down in Des Moines. When a lobbyist comes into my office to try and lobby me on a bill, they will always throw in a byline of, well, you know, Majority Leader Windschitl, this really helps Iowans have more freedoms. All right? And it's just one of those things where I laugh at them. I'm like, you had to throw that in. And they're like, well, we know you. So, freedom.
Rebecca, tell us 3 key messages of your campaign.
The main message, the first message, yes, is freedom. But also my second message is that I support pro-choice, but I am not going to endorse a candidate that is pro-life. That freedom, those unborn, is just as important as our freedoms. And then the third message is standing my ground against big government and lobbyists. They don't have a say, they should not have a say in Iowans' freedoms.
We have, the next question is yours, Rebecca. What areas of public policy are you personally passionate about?
I am personally passionate about the candidates. One of the things, like the public policy as far as that I want to go down to Des Moines and do is we need to be able to recall county officials in the state of Iowa. As of right now, you cannot recall county officials or below in the state of Iowa. Nebraska's been doing it for years. And so if we get a elected official that's in office, we have to wait 4 years until we can vote them out of office. I don't think that it should be something that's easily done. There needs to be safeguards, but that is something that I'm very passionate about for the state of Iowa.
Matt, what areas of public policy are you passionate about?
Well, like I've said before, freedom. But to be without the joke there, one of the things that I'm very passionate about and I want to see happen in Iowa, and this is going to take quite a bit of time to get there, but I want to see us get to a 0% income tax rate. All right, you should not be taxed on the work that you do. If you want to be taxed on consumption, that's a better way to go about it and have an equal playing field for everybody. Now, we've made strides in that direction. This year alone, we passed the most monumental and historic tax cut the state has ever seen as far as income taxes. Over the course of the next 5 years, it's going to get you down to a 3.9% flat tax for everybody. And then all retirement income is exempted from income taxes in the state of Iowa, so that you can spend your golden years being the pillars of your community that you have been without having to fear that you're on fixed income and you got to move out. So I'd like to get us down to a 0% income tax, but it's going to take a lot more work.
Okay. Matt, this one starts with you. Choose a single issue that you would prioritize in the coming term if elected and describe what you would do to resolve that issue.
The biggest issue that we need to resolve in the coming term is going to be the Protect Life Amendment. After we passed the heartbeat bill, which I proudly voted for back in 2017, the state Supreme Court overturned that heartbeat law. And when they did that, they basically wrote a right to an abortion into the state constitution without amending the constitution, which they don't have the authority to do, only the people of Iowa have the authority to do. So we've already passed the Protect Life Amendment through the House, this last General Assembly. We need to pass that again in the next General Assembly in order for us to overturn the Katie decision that was laid down on the heartbeat bill, especially in light of what's going on with the federal government right now and what's happening with Roe v. Wade. We have to undo our state Supreme Court decision in order for us to then be able to regulate and make decisions on protecting the unborn without being automatically overturned.
Rebecca, the same question. What single issue would you prioritize in the coming term if elected, and describe what you would do to resolve that issue?
The pro-choice issue is the thing that I would, or the pro-life, excuse me, pro-life issue is what I would work for the hardest. But to get the pro-life put through, I definitely would not endorse a pro-choice Republican candidate, because we need more pro-life candidates in the Iowa House. We have candidates that say the Republican platform is pro-life. We cannot support candidates that are pro-choice. They say they're moderates, they say they're conservative, but if you're a conservative Republican, how can you endorse a pro-choice candidate? That's not pro-life to endorse a pro-choice candidate. And that we have to have more pro-choice, pro-life.
Okay, Rebecca, this next one's yours. Should Iowa implement term limits? Why or why not?
Term limits, this is exactly why I'm running for office, is because a lot of people want term limits. But look at California. Term limits in California, what happens is the representatives and the elected officials know they're not going to be there very long, and so what happens is in the last years of their term, they start doing pretty much whatever they want. So in some ways, yes, we need term limits, but that's why I'm running, is so that we need to vote candidates and incumbents who've been there 15, 16 years. We need to vote them out so that we don't have to have term limits. Like I said, look at California and look at what has happened to California because they had term limits. So I'm not for term limits.
Should Iowa implement term limits? Why or why not?
My answer to the question is no, we should not, and here's the why, okay? As I've been down there in Des Moines for the many years that I've served you, there are lobbyists that have been there literally longer than I have been alive on this planet, all right? And they will come in, they'll put their arm around you and be like, hey, here's how it's always been done, here's how it's always gonna be. Now guess what? It's not just the lobbyists, it's the bureaucrats. I'm talking the entrenched bureaucrats that will come in and try and tell a legislator, this is how you have to write the law. No, bureaucrats aren't gonna tell us that. Legislators are gonna tell us that, and constituents are gonna tell us that. If you have term limits, what you end up having is a bureaucracy running the institution, and you don't have the institutional knowledge of people that have been there, that have gone through the battles on different issues, and can tell you, hey, here's the best roadmap to having a successful outcome for the people of Iowa. So you don't want the bureaucrats running the show, folks. You want your elected, accountable representatives and senators running the show.
Okay, next question, Matt. This goes to you first. What is your vision of growth for the future of District 15, and how will you work to implement that through your work as a representative?
Vision of growth is going to come back to the income tax question, but also property taxes. If we're going to continue to be competitive with our neighboring states like South Dakota and Nebraska, we have to make Iowa the most lucrative state to be able to raise your family. So even for those commuters that are driving back and forth down the Council Bluffs or going into Omaha or other places in Nebraska, we want them here in Iowa so that they can raise their family. So part of it is making sure that our income taxes are low and our property taxes are low. But the other leg of that stool is to make sure that we've got good communities that are thriving, whether that be great educational institutions like we currently have, but we also have to have good infrastructure so people can get to those places and not have to take their car to the dealer. For instance, I just ripped off the skid plate on my car as I was out door knocking yesterday, and so my car is literally down at Mike's garage getting fixed. We got to make sure we've got good roads and bridges so people can get to and from work and actually be able to live their life without having to go to the repair shop every other week. So all of those things.
Rebecca, same question. What is your vision of growth for the future of District 15, and how will you work to implement that through your work as a representative?
My vision for District 15 is pretty much the same as Matt's. The income tax we have to eliminate the income tax. Right now, the income tax legislation that was passed, while it's very good, we also have to make sure that we don't give the federal government deduction that we typically got. Some people are going to end up paying more taxes, and that's not what we need. We need to get down to a 0% income tax and lower property taxes. We want people to come to Iowa. We want people to come to our schools, and we want people to stay in Iowa. We want to make it so that the people of Harrison County and Pot County can afford to stay here. Their property taxes don't go through the roof. And as a state, as a representative, we can adjust those levies so that people can afford their taxes on their property.
Rebecca, next question, we start with you. How do you plan to involve or engage the constituents of District 15 in decisions being made in Des Moines?
I plan to have my email, my phone available at all times. We need to have the legislative caucus like they have now, have town halls so that constituents can participate in government. I want to encourage people to come down to Des Moines. It is an eye-opener. It's great. Actually, don't just engage me, engage the other legislators, because as I said earlier, what their decisions affect all of us. And I would really strongly encourage people to come down to Des Moines. And, stop by, come see us. I will be around, I will be available. I would love to have coffee. Stop at the coffee shops like I've been doing now. And really I want to really get to know more of you. I know a lot of you.
Matt, how do you plan to involve or engage the constituents of District 15 in decisions being made in Des Moines?
I will continue to do what I have done for the past 16 years. I will be upfront and honest. I will be transparent. If you want to know where I'm at on an issue, if you don't already know, if you call me, you're going to get a direct answer out of me. Some people don't like my blunt approach to things, but I'm a what am I trying to say here? I'm a thick-headed jarhead, all right, that's dragging my knuckles. There we go. So the bottom line is I'll continue to answer your emails, your phone calls, visit with you in Des Moines, visit with you back here in the district. And just like Rebecca said, if you come down to Des Moines, I always try and bring folks back into my office. There's a couple folks in the audience here that have been in my office more than once. I know I've invited Rebecca down to talk about the medical privacy and freedom language with some lobbyists that had some concerns, and she was able to attend that meeting. So I will continue to be transparent and open with you. I don't think anybody's ever had to question, gee, where's Matt at on that issue when it comes to the core fundamental values that we all believe in together.
Okay. Matt, we'll start with you on this one. How do you plan to work together across party lines to pass important legislation that will benefit our communities?
By continuing to work with the minority party and those people that have differences of opinion. I know it might sound odd, and this might, some people might not like it, but I actually have quite a good working relationship with the House Minority Leader, Jennifer Converse. Her and I are able to have communications, whether we agree on the outcome of the policy or not, we're able to have communications and talk through how do we make the legislative process move smoother, how do we make sure that her minority members are being heard, and that their voices aren't being silenced, because at the end of the day, they're duly elected just like everybody else, and they deserve to have their voices heard as well. One of the biggest problems that I see right now, not only in DC, but also in politics in Iowa and around the country, is the hyper-partisanism. Too many people get in their own echo chamber, and they only hear what they want to hear, and they don't actually start listening to diverse opinions. So I will continue to keep an open-door policy with anybody that wants to have a conversation with me, and make sure that all the voices are being heard that possibly need to be heard.
Okay. Rebecca, how do you plan to work together across party lines to pass important legislation that will benefit our communities?
I'm learning as I go out and about, door to door, that there are a lot of people that I'm going to need to represent that don't necessarily think exactly like I do. It's important to listen to their concerns, which I have been doing, and there are people who have signs in their yards that don't necessarily think like I do, but they appreciate the fact that I will stand up for their right to free speech, their right, their constitutional rights. We need to listen to Democrats and Republicans both. There are Republicans that don't necessarily agree with me, but it's important to let them talk agree to disagree at times, but the main thing is we need to stand up for the Constitution. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you come to me with something that is against the Constitution, I will vote on the side of the Constitution every time. I will visit with you about why, but I will stand up for both Democrats and Republicans.
Okay. Well, we've gone through legislation and priorities, and we've gone through communications, so now we're going to start with some questions about security and growth. Okay? Rebecca, we start with you for this one. What do you feel is Western Iowa's greatest asset, and what would you do to enhance that if elected?
I feel like Western Iowa's greatest asset is its people. The people of Western Iowa are friendly, for the most part. They get along. We are close to the city, so we can, there's a lot of jobs down there, but also we have a lot of jobs in Harrison County, and we're able to let those people stay here. But our greatest asset is definitely our people. You go other places, and they're not near as friendly as Harrison and Pot County. I've enjoyed the people in Pot County too, getting to know them, and that's our greatest asset. It's the fact, and we will work together in times of adversity. We've had floods, we've had the tornado over in Logan. The people in Western Iowa do know how to work together, in spite of their, it doesn't matter, party differences.
Matt, what do you feel is Western Iowa's greatest asset, and what would you do to enhance it if elected?
Rebecca's spot on. It's our people, all right? In doing this for 16 years, having a bunch of different counties that I've represented, including Pot County when I first started, it is truly the people. But it's also our communities, and those people that are giving back into those communities, making them the place to live, grow, and raise a family. So we do need to highlight the benefits that Iowa has: low tax rates, good communities, good schools. I mean, you don't have to drive far to go find a friendly face. Matter of fact, you just got to walk next door most of the time. Trust me, I know that. I've been going out door to door a lot, and I've been all over Western Iowa, and I will absolutely 100% agree with Rebecca. It is the people, and we need to highlight that it's the people in our communities that make Iowa the best place to live, grow, and raise a family.
Okay. Matt, we start this one with you. What do you see as the top security threat facing Iowa, and what would you do as a representative to address that?
Top security threat facing Iowa right now is the federal government. They are rampantly out of control. And it doesn't matter whether it was the previous administration under President Trump or the current administration under President Biden. Congress has failed us repeatedly, and we have to make sure that we are protecting ourselves and we're self-sufficient within our own borders. What I mean by that is we've got a lot of great resources here in Iowa. All right, we are leaders in energy production for renewables. We're leaders in wind energy. We feed the world, for goodness sakes. I mean, we have to make sure that we are secure within our own borders as a sovereign state. And if the federal government continues to try and cram their regulations and their bureaucracies down our throat, at some point, we as a sovereign state are going to have to stand up and say, no, you go to hell. We're not doing that anymore. We're not taking that kind of crap from you. And we have to stand up to the federal government. That's the biggest threat that we face right now.
Okay, Rebecca, what do you see as the top security threat facing Iowa, and what would you do as a representative to address it?
The top security threat facing Iowa is exactly like Matt said, it's the federal government. And that is exactly why I helped write and legislate the Medical Privacy and Freedom Bill. Because the federal government was trying to take away our freedoms. That was just the first step. If they'd have been able to get it done, they would have. And so why wouldn't we put the Medical Privacy and Freedom Bill through? Why would we carve out, if the federal government is our biggest security threat, why would we write a bill? We did not write the bill, but why would the House of Representatives carve out for the federal government to be able to say that Iowa, that the federal government can make you get a shot or can control your health? The federal government should not be able to tell you anything that you have to do about your health. And so if that's the biggest security threat, we do not want to start out by not passing this bill. This bill should have sailed.
Okay, Rebecca, identify 3 national security threats to the United States that impact the citizens of District 15, and choose one of them and explain your approach to dealing with it.
The biggest security threat to the citizens of District 15 has to do with what I just spoke about. The WHO, we have it coming up on May 22nd. We have the vote where they're going to try to say that that UN troops can come into the United States, that the WHO can say what about our health. That is a huge security threat. And Iowa needs to not carve out for the federal government to be able to come into Iowa, because that's just the first step, is our health. And so we need to not carve out for the federal government, because this is coming if we don't stop it in the Iowa House and the Iowa Senate before session is over.
Okay, Matt, identify 3 national security threats to the United States that impact the citizens of District 15, and choose one of them and explain your approach to dealing with that threat.
Okay, so the 3 major threats that we are having right now is inflation on all of us, that affects all of us, and that's a national security threat. Because if you don't have bread on the shelves, people are going to start going crazy. But you also have cybersecurity. In some of the briefings that I've been privy to, you would be shocked at how many times a day, even our own Department of Revenue is trying to be hacked by autonomous computers that are just going in trying to get people's personal information to try and sell it on the black market so they can clone your identity. And the other national security threat that we have is this push towards globalism. All right, globalism is not the answer, folks. We have to maintain our own sovereignty, not only as a state, but as a country. We have to maintain our own independence on the world scale. So we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can. And so what am I doing to try and fight some of those things? Inflation, number 1, keeping your taxes low, trying to cut your property taxes, and give you more freedom in your pocketbook. So that's the only one that I had time to explain to. So there we go. I don't want Clint hitting the buzzer on me.
Okay, the next question, Matt, we'll start with you. What skills or traits do you have that will contribute to your being effective if you are elected?
Lord help me, God blessed me with the gift of gab. Even though I didn't know that I was going to have it when I was homeschooled and then when I joined the Marine Corps, I found that when I got into politics, I was able to sit down with people of diverse opinions and come to a consensus. Being able to work with people that maybe didn't always agree with me. And that's proven its way out by the fact that I served as an assistant leader when I first started. I was in Speaker Pro Tem for many years. And then at 35, my caucus decided to elect me as a House Majority Leader. All of those things are to the benefit of my constituents back here in House District 17 and hopefully in House District 15, is my ability to work through the problems, find consensus, and move us forward on good public policy.
Rebecca, what skills or traits do you have that would contribute to being effective if elected?
I also have a gift of gab. For those of you that know me, I can talk your hind leg off. But I also, I was a waitress. I was in that field for quite many years. As many of you know, the customer is always right. You have to learn how to deal with the customer. So I would be able to deal with people that don't necessarily agree with me, but you can't give away the farm. As a waitress, the customer is always right, but you can't give away the restaurant. And so therefore, that's the same with, as a representative, I have to be able to get along with people that don't necessarily agree with me. I have to be able to work with them, but I'm not going to give away the state. I'm not going to give away all your tax dollars just because somebody else wants me to. And that's the biggest thing, and I've been married for almost 34 years, so I've learned to
Rebecca, do you consider yourself strictly pro-choice or a pro-life candidate?
I am definitely pro-life. That is one thing I will not waver on. I have had, as I have been going door to door, I have had people who I can agree to disagree that feel like, even though they're Republicans, they believe that a woman should have a choice. And I say, they do have a choice with their body. If a woman chooses to have, a hysterectomy, say, that is her body. But a baby, that is not her body. That would be killing another human being. So I will stand on always. I will agree to disagree with some people because there are people that say she should have a choice, but I am pro-life. I will always stand up for the unborn, no matter how old they are.
Okay, Matt, do you consider yourself strictly a pro-choice or pro-life candidate?
Strictly pro-life, and my record proves that. Like I said, I mean, I voted on multiple different things, from the heartbeat bill to the 20-week abortion ban, the 72-hour waiting period, the 24-hour waiting period. We've defunded Planned Parenthood. We stopped taxpayer dollars from being funded at the University of Iowa for reimbursement for abortions. I mean, my record is there, and you can't poke holes in it. And look, at the end of the day, I believe life begins at conception, all right? God is God, and He creates life, all right? Through whatever means, whatever happens. I understand that there are some very stressful, extraneous circumstances in some pregnancies, but God chose to put that baby in the womb. It's up to God when that baby should be departed from this earth, not up to us as human beings. I'm 100% pro-life. I always have been. I always will be.
Okay, Matt, this one we start with you. What is the biggest state legislative issue you see for the next 2 years, and how do you propose to fix it?
Biggest state legislative issue is always going to be the budget and making sure that we're passing sound budgets that are sustainable and they don't spend more than the state takes in, all right? And this is a principle that we as Republicans in the House have been fighting for well over a decade. You wouldn't go out and take your checkbook and then spend everything in your checkbook and then go put everything that you wanted to buy on your credit card, even though you don't have the paycheck to pay for it, would you? No. So the state of Iowa needs to make sure that we have a sustainable and sound budget, which we have been having for the past decade now, and that is what has led us to have the opportunity to pass some of these historic tax cuts, to return money to you and not have government waste and expansion. So that's what we need to continue to do, is make sure that we are passing sound budgets so that we are able to fund your priorities, but in a way that slows the growth rate of government and does not have a bloated government bureaucracy.
Okay, and Rebecca, what is the biggest state legislative issue you see for the next 2 years, and how would you propose to fix it?
I agree with Matt that the budget is the most important. One of the ways that I propose to fix it is we have too many bureaucracies down in Des Moines. There are offices that we need to audit. We need to look into these offices and see why they're not doing their job. There have been whistleblowers that have talked about the Alcohol, Food and Beverage Division that is spending over $4 million more than they should have. All these bureaucracies down in Des Moines, these offices, we need to look into those and cut those. That would help us cut our budget, and that would help us get to where we need to be. Those people shouldn't just be allowed to do whatever they want. And I think it would take 2 years because there's a lot of bureaucracy down in Des Moines. So we need to look into each individual office.
Okay, Rebecca, we start this one with you. Previously, federal refunds were deductible on state income taxes. My understanding is that this deduction will be eliminated on the flat tax bill. What is your position on this?
My position is, my understanding is that some people are going to end up paying more taxes because they're not allowed that federal deduction. No, it's not going to affect everybody, because some people, if they don't pay as much federal income tax. So we say we have a tax cut, but there are people that will end up paying more. And so I think that we should be allowed, if we're paying tax to the federal government, why is Iowa taxing money that we've already been taxed on? That's a double tax. And so they say they're giving us back our own money, but yet we're paying taxes on something that's already been taxed. That's just not right. And it's interesting how this is an election year and people vote with their pocketbook. So of course we're going to do a tax cut. And some people are going to end up paying more, but it's going to be too late. The election's going to be over, but.
Okay, Matt. Previously, federal refunds were deductible on state income taxes. My understanding is that this deduction will be eliminated on the flat tax bill. What is your position on this?
I voted for the 3.9% flat tax. Part of paying for that and making sure that it is sustainable, we had to adjust some of the other taxes that we have out there, including some of the corporate tax rates, to make sure that it was sustainable long-term, and we didn't find ourselves in a position where, with the economy that we have, if inflation continues to rise and the economy continues to sink, that we can't fund the necessary services of state government. There's always a trade-off when you're starting to do tax policy, whether you have tax credits or whether you have federal deductibility. There have been years where we've conformed to federal deductibility, and then there's been years where we haven't. There's also been years where we've had bonus depreciation or 163J. Nobody's going to know what 163J is, sorry. But it deals with our corporations, our businesses, our farmers, all of those people. So it's complicated, but that's why we did it the way we did, was in order to make sure that everybody gets down to a 3.9% rate.
Okay, Matt, this one we start with you. What are your views on school choice?
I believe that parents and students should have the option to make a decision for themselves where their student should best be educated. How we pay for that is where the complication has come in. There's a lot of concern that with our good school systems that we have out here in rural Iowa, that they might be harmed by a type of educational choice. What I've looked at and what I'd like to propose, and I tried to run this through the caucus, but unfortunately we don't have 51 votes for it right now, is to put a separate silo of money out there and have scholarships be able to be awarded out of that and hold the local school district harmless for that first year that they would lose that student. So they would still carry full freight for that first year, and then that will have the public education systems be able to actually be competitive and understand why are those students leaving to go to St. Albert's, or why are they, parents making the decision to go over here. Is it the curriculum? Is it the education we're providing? So I'm for school choice, but we just have to find a way to do it so we don't have a decimation of our public education system.
Rebecca, what are your views on school choice?
I'm definitely for school choice, and what people don't realize is when the student moves from the school district they live in, and they move to another school district, the school that they live in still receives the federal and local tax dollars. It's the state funds that we want to, the school, my understanding of the bill is that the state funds follow the student. Those parents pay taxes, those parents should have a choice of where their student goes. So if that money follows the student, I am all for school choice because the money needs to follow the student. And it would also, if the students are being moved from the schools, going to either private schools or moving to another school district, which school choice, we already can open a roll, but the money, the parents should be able to do that. That's their children, and they should be able to make the best decision for their children, and it would also hold the schools accountable.
Okay, Rebecca, this one's for you. What do you think is the most important issue facing the citizens of all of Western Iowa right now? And if elected, what makes you the best candidate to seek a resolution to that issue?
The most important thing facing Iowans, Western Iowans right now, we all know, is the inflation, the high gas prices, the food going up. Citizens, I've spoke to citizens and they said, our income isn't changing, but our gas prices and our food prices, there are many families in Western Iowa that live paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford this. And what we need to do for them is lower their taxes. That's the one thing we can do as a state. We can lower their taxes, their property taxes. I had a couple yesterday that they were trying to buy their own house, but they said with gas prices and food prices going up, they said we can barely afford to feed our family. So Iowans, as a representative, we need to look into what we can do to give these people, on top of reducing the income tax, to let them keep more of their own money.
Matt, what do you think is the most important issue facing the citizens of all of Western Iowa? And if elected, what makes you the best candidate to seek a resolution to that issue?
I agree with Rebecca that inflation is probably the most important thing that's hitting everybody in the pocketbook right now. As far as why am I the best candidate? Because I've been doing this for 16 years. I have a great deal of influence with my colleagues, both in the House and in the Senate and with the governor's office. And I have proven that I can work through pretty much any issue and try and find consensus on it. And part of that is absolutely trying to cut property taxes, but also cut income taxes. It's all part of the three-legged stool, if you will, of trying to make sure that everybody is got a level playing field, but don't have to be be concerned about whether or not they're paying for the grocery bill or they're paying for the electric bill. So we need to cut the taxes and keep working towards that end.
Okay, and Matt, this one will start with you. What do you think are one or two specific measures that you will support and drive to help economic growth in Western Iowa?
Reinvestment in our communities, number one. Everybody wants to live in a nice hometown, and making sure that the communities have an infrastructure there and are attractive to people that want to come and live in their community. But it's also about having the economic drive for Iowans is going to be, do you have outdoor recreation? Do you have indoor recreation? Do you have the services that I want within those communities? So it's about trying to make sure that we are as attractive as possible, and then using our state resources through economic development in a very prudent way to make sure that we're not wasting money on frivolous government programs, but reinvesting in our communities through economic development in a way that's actually going to help those communities grow and prosper.
Okay, Rebecca, what is one or two specific measures that you will support and drive to help economic growth in Western Iowa?
As I've been going around the county, one of the things that we need to do is support the small businesses. As you guys have seen with COVID, we lost a lot of businesses. Look at Logan. We have one gas station in Logan now. We need to do what it takes to encourage these encourage these small businesses to stay in our community. And I don't mean just bring in corporate big businesses like Casey's and Come and Go. We need to support the small businesses, small business owners, and then our youth. One of the things we need to invest in our youth. We've been doing really great. Missouri Valley, I believe, has the trade where they're learning a trade. We need to invest in the youth and keep them in our community. If we educate them, and those that can't go to college, a four-year college, learn a trade, and then keep those students, those young people in our community.
Rebecca, what characteristics or principles are the most important for someone elected to this office?
The characteristics and principles most important are honesty and integrity. What you say you believe in, that's what you stand for. That's how you vote every time. Don't say you endorse, you stand for one thing and then endorse a candidate that stands for something else.
Okay.
And what I stand for and what you stand for is the same all the time. You can't say something to our constituents and then go down to Des Moines and say something different.
Okay. All right, Matt, what skills or traits, what characteristics or principles are most important for someone elected to this office?
You have to be willing to listen to everybody, and you have to have integrity. If you're going to say you're going to do something, you have to be willing to follow through and do it. And I've been doing that for 16 years now. I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. Rebecca's brought it up a couple of times now. So I endorsed one of my colleagues, all right? That colleague is pro-life, but people claim that she's not. So I'm not going to have her integrity put in question. She's pro-life. So that's what's being referred to. You have to have integrity. You have to tell the whole truth, the whole story, and not just say something to get a buzzword in.
Okay, and now Matt, we start with you for this one. Matt, why should voters elect you?
I believe voters should elect me because I have a proven track record. I stand by the votes that I've taken. I've delivered on the promises that I've made to my constituents. I fight hard for Western Iowa, and I've done so for 16 years. I want to continue that fight for you. And it's not easy. I'm sure everybody can understand that. It's not easy going down there and doing this job. But I've done it for 16 years, and I want to continue to do it on your behalf because I've proven that I can get the job done for you.
Rebecca, why should voters elect you?
Voters should elect me because we need new faces in Des Moines. The status quo doesn't go anymore. We have to actually listen to the people, stand up for their freedoms. I know I've been hammering on this, but the medical freedom, if you lose your freedoms, you're not going to get those back. We can't give them up gradually one at a time. It should not take 8 years to get our medical freedom to us. I have a lot to learn. I'm willing to learn. I'm a fast learner. I'm willing to work with other people and represent the people of Harrison and Potawatomi counties. I'm asking you to vote for me because we need change.
All right, now we're going to go into our closing remarks. Rebecca, we'll start with you.
Here we are on the brink of the Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade. If Iowa had voted for the Preserve Life Amendment in 2020, we would, when this bill, if the Supreme Court reversed the decision, we would be able to have legislation that prevented babies from being aborted. But as of right now, because of representatives that voted against the Preserve Life Amendment, voted against the heartbeat bill, voted against the 20-week abortion ban, we won't be able to get the Preserve Life Amendment until 2025. In that 2.5 years, the average rate of abortions in the state of Iowa is 4,000. That means there was possibly 10,000 babies that can be aborted between now and 2025. If we're going to be pro-life, we need to be completely pro-life. I am for life all times. Every vote should be for pro-life. Every vote. Not just the ones that we think we want. If you're pro-life, be pro-life. And our freedoms. Our medical freedoms. I know I keep hammering on that, but it's just the beginning. We cannot give up our freedoms at all. I don't think people realize.
Okay, Matt, your closing remarks.
All right, again, I just want to thank you folks for taking the time out of your busy work days to come out here and listen to Rebecca and I want to continue serving, and I think that's readily apparent by the participation in this forum and the fact that both Rebecca and I are getting out, knocking on the doors, and talking with you. I've got 16 years of a track record that I stand by. I've delivered on the promises that I've made to you, and I want to continue to do that. I look forward to earning your vote. I appreciate you folks getting out or taking the time to come out, but I also need you to talk to your friends and neighbors, because not everybody's here tonight, and grassroots is what makes or break a campaign like this. So I appreciate you taking the time. If you have any follow-up questions for me, please do let me know. I do have some campaign material that we can pass out on the way out the door. I think that's what Jeannie said, and some yard signs. But bottom line is this: I'm asking for your vote on June 7th. I've got a record that you can't poke holes in. I want to continue to serve you in the State House. Thank you, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much. We want to thank you all for coming this evening, and remember to get out and vote. And there are some absentee ballot forms in the back if you are interested in that. And there is some information in the back, I believe. And Star has something.
I have a plug on the absentee ballot. Just keep in mind that in-person early voting can happen at your courthouse. This podium moves. At your courthouse now until the day before election, which would be June 6th. If you do wish to get an absentee ballot, like Renee said, there are the forms back there. Those do need to be received at the courthouse this week because the last day to mail out is May 23rd, which happens to be this coming Monday. So just didn't want you to bank on the absentee ballot and not be able to get that done. So.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for paying close attention. It was good to have such a receptive audience tonight. On your way out, there are bottles of water, there's cups of coffee, so please help yourself. The building will close at 7:30, so you have until that time to be able to speak with the representatives and ask them personally whatever questions you might have. Thank you.
We're not going to have the questions from the crowd.
Those questions were asked, but they were already asked.
No, not all of them.
They went through and chose, and our time is now up. So if you have a question that was not previously asked, ask the representatives individually.
You can.
Yes, you're ready to do that now.
Conclude, everyone can get up and go. Yes, you can go back to
This is Bryan Jack Holder. I'm the Liberty Caucus candidate for Iowa's 4th Congressional District. Tonight, it is May 4th, 2022, and the Republican primary is just a few weeks away. I want to formally and publicly announce my support for my friend John Ray Springhauer for Pottawatomie County Board of Supervisors. I've gotten to know John over the last 6 months. He's very open and transparent, accountable, and I think he would do a wonderful job representing all of the people of Pottawatomie County. So I ask you to support John in the June 7th Republican primary for Pottawatomie County Board of Supervisors. Thank you, everyone.